back to our channel. Do you know what's about to happen on Y&R? The plot is incredibly tense as Christine reveals Phyllis's horrific past, the one covering up Matt's actions. How will Nick react when he finds out? The atmosphere inside the luxurious Genoa City athletic club suite is thick with an almost suffocating tension as the former lovers find themselves locked in a high-stakes psychological standoff. Phyllis Summers, a woman who has spent her entire life clawing her way to the top of the corporate ladder, is now staring down the terrifying barrel of federal prison. Victor Newman has masterfully orchestrated a devastating trap, utilizing highly advanced artificial intelligence to fabricate a flawless trail of incriminating emails and financial documents that paint Phyllis as a ruthless corporate thief. With the walls closing in and her trusted attorney Michael Baldwin recently fired for suggesting she surrender, Phyllis is operating on pure, unadulterated survival instinct. She holds the ultimate bargaining chip in the form of an amnesiac Matt Clark, the very monster who has terrorized the Newman family for decades. When Nick Newman arrives, the air crackles with unresolved history and present danger, setting the stage for a negotiation that could alter the landscape of the city forever. As the intense negotiation begins, Phyllis exhibits her trademark skepticism, her sharp eyes scanning Nick for any sign of weakness or deceit. She openly questions whether Nick actually possesses the political and familial power required to make her monumental legal troubles disappear. After all, Victor Newman is a man who notoriously bows to no one, and his vendetta against Phyllis has reached a fever pitch. Phyllis wonders aloud if Nick can truly sway the formidable district attorney, Christine Blair Romalotti, a woman who has harbored a deep, historical animosity toward Phyllis for years. The fiery redhead demands to know if Nick is writing checks his influence cannot cash, acutely aware that one wrong move will result in her wearing a federal prison jumpsuit. She analyzes his posture, the slight tremor in his hands, and the desperate gleam in his eyes, trying to determine if he is a genuine savior or just another unwitting pawn in Victor Newman's grand, destructive chessboard. Nick, however, stands his ground with a fierce, almost frightening intensity that betrays the dark demons currently consuming his soul. He vehemently insists that he holds the necessary leverage and influence to orchestrate a complete dismissal of the charges, demanding that Phyllis trust his capabilities. What Phyllis does not fully comprehend is that Nick's unwavering determination is heavily fueled by his secret, spiraling addiction to fentanyl and opioids, a terrifying affliction born from the trauma inflicted by the very man Phyllis is currently hiding. Nick's mind is a chaotic storm of drug-induced paranoia and a blinding, primal thirst for vengeance. He is not operating as the rational, moral compass of the Newman family. Instead, he is a desperate man willing to cross any ethical boundary to get his hands on his tormentor. His insistence is less about his actual legal prowess and more about a dangerous, tunnel vision obsession that is severely clouding his every judgment. Driven by this dark, overwhelming obsession, Nick makes an immediate, non-negotiable demand to see Matt Clark right that very second. The mere thought of Matt, the man who kidnapped him, tortured him, and plunged him into the abyss of addiction, being just a few feet away sends a massive surge of adrenaline through Nick's veins. He wants to look into the eyes of the monster who nearly destroyed his life, and the lives of Sharon and Noah. Nick's urgency is palpable, his voice thick with a barely contained rage that threatens to boil over into physical violence at any given moment. He views Matt not as a simple bargaining chip, but as a target for his own brand of lethal, uncompromising justice. The desperate need to confront his abuser completely overshadows all logic, making Nick reckless and aggressive as he attempts to force Phyllis into revealing the amnesiac fugitive's exact location within the opulent hotel suite. Phyllis, ever the master tactician, flatly refuses to yield to Nick's aggressive demands, recognizing that relinquishing her only leverage without a guaranteed safety net would be tantamount to corporate and personal suicide. She coolly argues that they do not yet have a formal, ironclad agreement, and until she sees tangible proof of her salvation, Matt remains strictly off-limits. Phyllis meticulously lays out her exorbitant terms, making it abundantly clear that she expects nothing less than a total, unconditional victory. She insists that not only must every single criminal charge be completely expunged from her record, but she must also be allowed to retain full, uncontested ownership and control of the Summers conglomerate. She absolutely refuses to let Victor Newman win this corporate war, demanding that Nick secure her absolute freedom and her business empire before she even considers handing over the man who has caused his family so much unspeakable agony. The psychological standoff reaches a critical juncture as Phyllis issues her final ultimatum, her voice laced with the cold, calculating precision of a woman who has nothing left to lose. She promises Nick that once he returns with verifiable news that her legal nightmares have been permanently resolved and that he has successfully neutralized Victor Newman's aggressive corporate maneuvers, She will gladly deliver Matt Clark into his waiting hands. Nick, realizing that brute force will not work against a cornered Phyllis, reluctantly accepts the terms but issues a chilling warning of his own. He looks deep into her eyes, his expression hardening into a mask of pure menace, and warns her not to dare trick him or play any of her signature manipulative games. The underlying threat is crystal clear: if Phyllis double-crosses him, the wrath of a drug-addicted, vengeance-seeking Nick Newman will be far worse than anything the federal government or his father could ever inflict upon her. Leaving the athletic club behind, Nick embarks on the daunting task of convincing the city's top prosecutor to drop a seemingly airtight case against one of her oldest enemies. The physical and emotional toll of his addiction weighs heavily on him as he navigates the streets of Genoa City, his body craving the numbness of the pills while his mind races with violent scenarios of revenge. When he finally secures a private meeting with Christine Blair Romalotti, the atmosphere is instantly fraught with professional skepticism and historical baggage. Christine, a woman who has dedicated her entire life to the pursuit of justice and who has personally suffered at the hands of Phyllis Summers in the past, looks at Nick with a mixture of profound concern and guarded curiosity. She is entirely unaware of the depths of Nick's current despair, seeing only the privileged son of Victor Newman arriving to ask for a monumental, seemingly impossible legal favor. Nick launches into his desperate pitch, attempting to persuade the seasoned district attorney to miraculously withdraw the devastating charges against Phyllis. He tries to appeal to her sense of pragmatism, weaving a complex narrative that downplays Phyllis's alleged corporate crimes while highlighting the need for strategic alliances in the city. However, Christine immediately questions his motives, her sharp legal mind instantly detecting the glaring inconsistencies in his highly unusual request. She points out the sheer absurdity of his proposition, reminding him that her office possesses a mountain of clear, unequivocal evidence detailing Phyllis's fraudulent activities and her illegal takeover of Newman Enterprises. Christine is utterly baffled as to why Nick, of all people, would advocate for the freedom of a woman who has consistently caused chaos and pain for his family, especially when the prosecution has essentially been handed a guaranteed conviction on a silver platter. Realizing that his initial approach is failing miserably, Nick aggressively shifts the focus of the conversation, attempting to reframe the narrative around a much more dangerous and immediate target. He passionately argues that Christine needs to redirect all of her formidable legal resources and focus entirely on hunting down and neutralizing Matt Clark. Nick paints a horrifying picture of Matt's past atrocities, emphasizing the severe, ongoing threat he poses to the safety and security of the entire community. He tries to convince Christine that prosecuting Phyllis for white-collar corporate fraud is a trivial pursuit when a violent, psychopathic monster like Matt is roaming free. Nick's intensity is palpable as he practically begs the district attorney to prioritize the physical safety of Genoa City's citizens over a corporate dispute, hoping that the sheer magnitude of Matt's evil will blind her to the highly suspicious nature of his request. Christine, however, is not so easily manipulated, and her unwavering dedication to the law prevents her from accepting Nick's deeply flawed logic. She firmly pushes back, refusing to understand why she cannot simply pursue and prosecute both criminals simultaneously. In her eyes, justice is not a multiple-choice question. Both Phyllis and Matt deserve to face the severe consequences of their respective crimes. As Nick continues to push, his desperation becoming increasingly transparent, a chilling realization suddenly dawns on the brilliant prosecutor. The pieces of the puzzle rapidly click into place in Christine's mind as she connects Nick's uncharacteristic defense of Phyllis with his obsessive need to capture Matt. The horrifying truth hits her like a physical blow. Phyllis Summers is secretly harboring the fugitive, and she is using the amnesiac Matt Clark as the ultimate twisted bargaining chip to extort her own legal exoneration. The moment this realization solidifies, Christine's professional demeanor shatters, replaced by an explosive, righteous fury directed entirely at Nick. She is absolutely incensed that the Newman heir would stoop to such deplorable depths, allowing himself to be so thoroughly and pathetically manipulated by his toxic ex-wife. Christine unleashes a blistering verbal assault, condemning Nick for compromising his morals, obstructing justice, and playing a dangerous, illegal game that could have catastrophic consequences for everyone involved. She is disgusted by the sheer audacity of the entire scheme, furious that Phyllis has managed to drag Nick down into her muck, and appalled that Nick would actually attempt to use the district attorney's office as a pawn in a dirty, backroom hostage negotiation. The betrayal of trust and the blatant disregard for the legal system leave Christine trembling with an anger that promises severe repercussions. Watching this tragic cycle of manipulation and despair unfold evokes a profound sense of heartbreak and frustration within us. It is genuinely devastating to witness a character like Nick Newman, who has so often stood as a pillar of strength and morality, be completely hollowed out by the relentless grip of addiction and the blinding poison of vengeance. The trauma he has endured at the hands of Matt Clark is undeniably horrific, but seeing that trauma twist him into a man willing to subvert justice and strike deals with the devil is a painful reminder of how easily the human spirit can be broken. We feel a deep, empathetic sorrow for the destruction of his integrity and a visceral frustration toward Phyllis, whose sheer, unapologetic selfishness knows absolutely no bounds. It is a haunting reflection on the destructive nature of secrets and the agonizing lengths to which people will go when they are driven by fear, pain, and the desperate need to survive, leaving us grieving for the honorable man Nick used to be. As the explosive meeting between Nick and Christine concludes, the sheer magnitude of the impending disaster becomes terrifyingly clear. Nick's desperate, drug-fueled plan to secure Matt Clark has spectacularly backfired, leaving him empty-handed and exposed to the wrath of a highly motivated district attorney. Christine is now armed with the dangerous knowledge of Phyllis's ultimate trump card, and she is a woman who will not rest until the full weight of the law is brought down upon those who attempt to mock it. Meanwhile, Phyllis remains isolated in her luxurious suite, completely unaware that her master plan is rapidly disintegrating, while Victor Newman continues to relentlessly tighten the noose around her corporate empire. The collision course between Victor's ruthless ambition, Christine's unwavering quest for justice, Nick's volatile addiction, and Phyllis's desperate survival instincts promises to ignite a firestorm that will consume them all. With Christine now fully aware of the dark, twisted game being played in the shadows, the stakes have never been higher for the residents of Genoa City. How will Phyllis react when she learns that her foolproof extortion plot has been exposed to the very woman determined to lock her away forever? Will Nick's spiraling addiction push him to take even more drastic, violent measures to get to Matt Clark before the authorities intervene? And what catastrophic chaos will ensue if the amnesiac monster at the center of this storm suddenly regains his terrifying memories? The stage is set for a breathtaking, explosive confrontation, and you will not want to miss a single second of the heart-stopping drama that is about to unfold. On our TV Spoilers channel, I always seek content inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting perspectives. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series.